Welcome to the Wonder of Woo podcast, where we highlight how businesses can scale profitably by serving others well. I'm Daryl Zavadny.
And I'm Ed Howie.
And this is
the Wonder of Woo. If you're a business owner investing time, money, and marketing only to be frustrated by losing customers, then this podcast is for you.
The purpose of this podcast is, of course, to celebrate the rewards of serving others well, really to talk about how consistent kindness and great execution are not just really feel-good things. They're actually really great business.
And to break down what it takes to make it happen.
Right, absolutely. So today in our podcast, I'd love to explore this concept. In our last episode, we really talked about what woo is. There's this ethereal idea of like, hey, what is the wonder of woo? And so we said it is winning others
Over
and over, right?
winning others over and over, 3 O's.
Okay. What I'd love to do is to say, okay, now that we've got that, way up here, but, and it's like, all right, winning others over and over, I really want to just focus on the second letter. I want to talk about.
Oh.
Yes. So others, why on earth is this even something we need to be talking about?
So, do you buy your own product or do you sell your product to others?
I buy my own product. Help phrase that again for me.
So, you're in business.
Yeah.
Are you selling to yourself or are you selling to others?
Oh, of course, I'm selling to others.
Right.
Right.
So, if your job, your business enterprise is set up to sell product to customers, those customers are the others we're talking about.
Right. Right.
Now, we can also talk about your team, and that's going to be a whole other set of episodes, right? But for today, we're focused on the customer, the first O, because it begins with the customer.
Okay.
So
to that end, and that seems kind of basic, right? So to our community who's listening,
I hope no one would
right? To our community who's listening, you would say, well, of course I need customers, otherwise I don't have a business. So I think it's important maybe to go back, whether you're a new business or whether you're an existing business. You say, well, listen, Ed, what's the purpose of when you start a business, when you started your company, when we started ours, what is the purpose of a business? What's a business do?
I don't know if I've ever been asked that question before. Like that specific, Like what does a business do? Think about it. A business has a product or service that they believe someone needs, and they believe that they can actually do it better than anyone else and do it profitably, right? Right?
I think what is inherent in that is this idea of meeting a need, right? You don't decide to open a cookie company because you have a great recipe. That might be it, but there also has to be a market of people to buy those cookies. It reminds me of, I know we've talked about it, my youngest son, Henry,
right?
12 years old and, enterprising lad, and just says, Dad, I want to make some money. And so I, of course, I wanted to explore that a little bit. And I said, help me understand why. And he, of course, cheeky kid. I love it. He said, well, of course, it's to buy you a Christmas present, which, Henry, if you're watching, I have not yet received that Christmas present. But more to the point, my counsel to Henry is, I said, Henry, listen, you are 12 years old. You are a talented kid. I don't want you to set up a lemonade stand. I think you're a little too old for that. And so we had this conversation, and I said, Henry, listen, a good business meets a need.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Did he come to you because he really just wanted to be a lemonade entrepreneur, or did he come to you because he thought the fastest way to build cash was to do a lemonade stand?
He came to me because he wanted to make money.
Okay.
And I think he was agnostic to how.
Okay, good. That's because some people do like all they want to do is be a baker, or all they want to do is sell insurance. But okay, so I'm tracking with you. Okay, so Henry, you wisely advise maybe lemonade stand not best. Okay.
So what I did do though is I said, hey, I think you need to think about needs you can meet. And so living in our neighborhood, I said, Henry, tell me what needs you can meet. He said, I don't know. And I said, well, let's talk about it. Can you pick up poop? Yes, sir. Can you water plants? Can you walk dogs? Can you mail Christmas cards? Can you do all those things? And yes were the answers. And so this conversation leads me to believe that the genesis of any enduring company really should be about meeting a need. Would you agree with that straw man?
Solely. I mean, truly. I mean, like, yes.
So the question, I think, is if we would all subscribe to that belief that, yes, maybe you've got a unique product, maybe you've got a unique delivery method, and, but ultimately what you're doing is meeting a need. It reminds me of, the story that people don't buy a quarter-inch drill bit. What they really want is a quarter-inch hole.
Right.
And so what the need that I'm trying to solve is this for the customer.
Right. So what did Henry? But wait, what did Henry end up doing?
Everything. Really? So within 12 hours, Henry listed everything that I had described, including watching pets and all of that, and listed them all on a chart and said, "Call my mom," and it said, "Call my mom," and she'll essentially be my booking agent, and he made $600 over Christmas.
Did Julie know that before he said,
yeah, she did.
Okay.
But the point is, it started.
So he made $600 over Christmas. Wow.
He did. And we don't need to focus on Henry. I think the point for our community is to say, no matter where you are in your business cycle, whether you're starting a new business, whether you have been in business for a couple of years and you're trying to get your stride, or whether you've been at it 20 years, the whole point is to say, well, are you able to focus on that second O? In what ways are you able to focus on that second O? So Henry did that very early on, and the tail of the tape is yet to be known. So the question is, do we have any examples, Ed, of somebody who has a company that has focused on the customer in unique ways, or has done it over time? Does anybody come to mind on that?
Well, I think of multiple examples of companies that do it. What I want to do real quickly, if you're okay with it, is talk about a dynamic that popped in my head as you were talking. And that is that I don't think many successful business owners or business leaders, let's say you join a company, you choose to join a company, that they would say that they don't agree with that.
Sure.
And as you're talking, I was envisioning me as a 36-year-old starting my own company. And one of the primary drivers for why I started my company was that in my role at HEB, we had the opportunity to meet directly, typically with the business owner, because we were such a big account to get. We typically had the regional salespeople, but a lot of times the owner or the president of the company would come. And I would be sitting there working with my team, trying to vet whether we felt like this product could generate enough velocity off the shelf, profitability, that kind of stuff. And I was sitting there with all these business owners, business leaders, recognizing that some of them had no idea the magic they had in their product. Some of them knew they had magic, they didn't know what to do with it. Or sometimes worse, they thought they had magic and they didn't.
Right.
So to your point, I started my enterprise with the need base, was that there were companies that needed access. This was before fractional marketing really was a thing. That there were companies and brands that need access to a marketing expert, but didn't need one full time. So yes, I do agree. But in full transparency, I then had to do it.
Right.
And if I would take 40 hours of my workday, being very underestimating, right?
Right.
40 hours of my work week, the amount of time I focused on the customer versus the amount of time I focused on the business, 50-1.
Okay.
Now,
in favor of the business over the
business
customer.
over the customer. Because running the enterprise, running the regional team, and I'm not talking about doing the work product. You know what I mean? I'm really actually almost talking about thinking about the customer as the customer.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Because we're a marketing firm, we have projects, we design billboards, whatever. I'm not talking about thinking about doing the stuff, right? But keeping a focus my intentions, I'm keeping a focus on having intentional behavior that was serving our customers beyond delivering what we committed to early on, especially, and depending on the season of life, it's not there because there's all these meetings and all this other stuff. Is this tracking with you?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I really wanted to maybe recap it for the purpose of our community and also just kind of explore even your experience, and because I think it translates, again, across industry, across even culture. What I think I heard you say is, even in your own business, in my own business, you start with this intent of the person coming to trade their hard-earned dollars for my product or service is my priority.
Right.
Even if we take Henry's analogy, I've really identified a need that I might be able to uniquely satisfy. So we've kind of set that as the initial starting blocks,
right,
to say, okay, they're my priority, and I've found a need, and then somehow in the course of business, the busyness of life and staffing and, electricity bills and finance and all of that, the role of the customer in our mind space has shrunk, and the role of all this other stuff of running the business has grown. Is that an accurate recap?
I think it's a little too accurate.
Yeah, scary, right?
Scary. As you were saying that, and as you're kind of deciphering that, and as we work through this, to me, the dynamics are not just in the leadership; it's throughout the whole company.
Right.
Am I more focused on getting this email sent, or having the impact of the email? Am I more focused on being ready for this 10 a.m. meeting, or ensuring that my team truly has cleaned up the mess that a shipping error created, and those customers are back into a loving relationship? You know what I mean?
Right.
As so much of what we explore and will explore is, it's not one or the other. It's both, right?
Sure.
And that, so to that comes back is, as I'm thinking about it, one of the ways that it starts with the customer, that O, the evidence of that is our intentions and our behavior.
Sure.
And the story I was going to share with you is kind of one of the quintessential stories, but Ritz-Carlton.
Okay.
Now, I mean, going down bougie lane.
Yeah.
I know. But anyway, I've stayed in many a Fairfield.
And again, to
people are going to get to know the bougie part of me anyway, so I can't hide it.
Yeah, and even furthermore, right? Yeah, the principle, whether I've stayed at a Ritz or whether you've stayed at a Ritz, right? The people know the reputation of Ritz, independent of the experience, right?
Their founding principle, going back to founders' objective, why the business was started, was because they believed that there was a way that Hort Schultze,
right,
wanted to build a hospitality business that served ladies and gentlemen by ladies and gentlemen. All right. And all the folklore stories, all the things you'll hear, they empower their people to do what needs to be done.
Right.
And that sounds great. And, oh my gosh, you're able to go find me a Jaguar, because my Jaguar, I don't have a Jaguar, all that stuff.
Right.
But here's what went through my head as we were talking. And this is not what I thought I might share. My wife and I and close couple friends had to totally rechange our big trip plan for anniversary. And I remember a founder's card, which if you're not a member of founder's card, I encourage you. They have discounts. This is not a paid promotion, but if you want to give me a free night at Ritz-Carlton, to take it. Yeah. But so founder's card is this network, this community of brands, and they offer discounts and values added in for all these cool properties, businesses, kind of stuff. Ritz-Carlton Lake Tahoe happens to be one of them.
It sounds lovely.
It is lovely. Yeah, we'll go sometime.
Yeah.
And so it was the summer of COVID, the very first summer of COVID, 2020. We had to cancel a trip that was planned the week that COVID bloomed, if you will. And so we were looking for something to do domestically. We wanted to do something a little special, but we wanted to be affordable. And so I was able to book a room at the Ritz-Carlton Lake Tahoe. And both my buddy and I, Wayne, have a lot of miles on Marriott. It's a Marriott property. But it was still during COVID. And so many things were closed down. There was a tremendous amount of social distancing.
Right.
There was mask wear everywhere, all that kind of stuff. But we figured Lake Tahoe, get outside, that can enjoy things. Well, so we get there, and Wayne and I both like to work out. And so we went down to the gym, and the gym was closed for public health purposes. Made sense.
Right.
Okay. However, inside that gym were Peloton bikes. And having a Peloton bike, I know that the only thing it takes to get a Peloton from one place to another,
just wheeling that thing.
Well, you got to unplug it first. Yeah. Unplug it, wheel it somewhere else, and plug it back in. It's not hardwired.
Yeah.
Well, I asked. I said, hey, what would it take to get a Peloton from the closed due to public health concerns gym up to our room? And guess what happened in about 45 minutes later?
I'm guessing that you had a Peloton in your room.
Two of the team members of the Ritz-Carlton Lake Tahoe put the Peloton on the trolley,
right,
and knocked on our door.
Yeah.
And said, Mr. Howie, Mr. Hoover, we have your Peloton.
Magnificent.
That was not on their to-do list for the
day,
right? That took them away from the other stuff they already had to do.
The business of running a hotel.
The business of running a hotel. The business of the fact that they were probably, I know they were understaffed.
Right.
I know they had been through heck trying to reopen the property. It was like 3 weeks in.
Right.
They had a lot of stuff on their mind. I actually... I am bougie, but I try to be empathetic as well.
Yeah.
I almost didn't ask, even that is always my first response.
Right.
Your first response to ask, because I knew all the stuff they were juggling with. But I was like,
as well.
What would it take?
Miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, or you want to go back and look at an old episode of How to Grow a Brand. One of my favorite episodes is the answer to the question you don't ask is always no. That's a whole nother conversation. Right. But here's the deal: is that team member put us first in those 32 minutes it took to do that.
Yeah.
I don't care what Hortz thought he was creating.
Right.
If it had not come to life in that team member's intention and behavior,
right,
then you can say all you want to, it starts with the customer, but it doesn't.
Right. Well, I think it's a magnificent story. The challenge or the objection that might be, kind of popping up in people's minds, and you already alluded to it, right? That's the Ritz-Carlton, right? And so and you mentioned this, the intentionality, the behavior. I think the question or the application is, how do you prioritize that customer, right? We started this episode saying, others is the second letter there, others. We've even canvassed this ground to say, and you start with a need, you start with an intention, and oftentimes it drifts. And so as I think about Horst, as I think about what he started, as I think about you and I and our businesses, and even as I think about our community and say, hey, you've got a business, you have a customer, I think two things, and that is prioritizing emotional bandwidth for the customer, individually and collectively, and prioritizing physical bandwidth for the customer. I think oftentimes the temptation is to think, and you and I have talked about this before, that customer experience is the customer service team's job. The fundamental fallacy of that is what we've said all along with the wonder of WOOO is it's everyone's job emotionally. It's everyone's job in terms of the protection of time, starting with the leader.
Exactly. And I think you just summarized it. So how do I start, or how does it work? Look at yourself first. Whatever role you're in the organization.
Right.
Is truly the customer top of mind? Is truly that the first thing that matters? Now, I don't mean the first thing always, but does it, when the shaking stops or whatever and it comes back to center, where does the customer fit into that world?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
We both know, and I think we all unfortunately would agree that you can ask and demand, but if it's not modeled and demonstrated by leadership, it's not going to happen.
Right.
And so I thought of one practical idea for our community.
Sure.
And this is something that I've explored and done and seen the evidence of.
Mm-hmm.
We get so caught up in taking care of our customers, we forget to take care of our customer.
Right.
We get so consumed by taking care of all the orders or all the quotes or all the offers or all the cars we got to clean because we sold some, whatever it is,
right.
of all the pizzas we got to make that we lose sight of.
Sure.
There's a human
right.
attached almost to each pizza.
Yeah.
Or each car or each quote, right?
Yeah.
And so how do you humanize them? Well, here's one practical tip. Think for yourself. Imagine if your whole team did this.
Mm.
Who are the 5 most important customers to us? And when's the last time we told them that? And I don't mean through an email drip automation that may get my name right. Or
mm-hmm.
By the way, someone has me as Dr. Howie. It's kind of cool. Their database. Anyway,
yeah.
I search that. So one, who are your top 5 customers? And when's the last time you told them how much they matter? And maybe the first thing you do is tell them, show them, demonstrate them in a personalized, unique way they matter.
Right.
And then here's another idea. The 5 customers you don't have that you wish you had back.
Mm.
What if you did the same thing?
Right.
And what if your team saw you do that your team knew you did that, and they start doing that organically? I'm not talking about like a checklist with a chart in the break room, right?
Right.
It starts with intention. Mm-hmm. The intention is demonstrated by the behavior. And I believe when we intentionally put the customer first and our behavior matches it, it is not only the right thing, it's the most profitable thing any of us can do for our business. And I'm thinking of things that I and my team need to do for our business very soon.
Absolutely. Well, and I hope and pray that there's application to you and your business. Again, this isn't about a particular tactic. It's not this isn't a to-do list. As Ed mentioned, this is about an intention lived out, and it likely will manifest in your calendar and in your words. And so what does it look like to have emotional and physical space protected to prioritize the customer? Again, they are the first O on purpose. Now, in our next podcast, or our next episode, we're going to talk about O's number 2 and 3. And so it's going to be fun to dive into that. It has been a joy talking about this today. Every time we wrap up this episode or our podcast, you say the same thing. And so what is that so that we can all be reminded of that until the next time we're together?
So that is that everyone wants woo.
And they
never want poo.
No, they don't.
No poo.
Until next time, thank you for joining us. We're delighted to spend time with you on the Wonder of Woo podcast. So that's it for today's episode of The Wonder of Woo. Head on over to Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to subscribe to the show. One lucky listener every single week who posts a review on Apple Podcast will win a chance in the grand prize drawing to win a $25,000 value private VIP day with Ed and me. Be sure to head on over to thewonderofwoopodcast.com to pick up a free copy of our gift, and please join us next time.